Yo, what's good, my people? Welcome back. Let's get right into it. Hopefully, y'all can hear me a little more clear. Got some new equipment in the house, you know what I'm saying? Just checking to make sure we're recording. All right, good. All right, listen, I decided to do this video over because the last video, some of y'all, there was a little something that popped up on one of the scenes, and being that this is a family-friendly show, and this is a Christ-based show, you know what I'm saying? We for the young people, the children, you know what I'm saying? We for everybody here, so keep it family friendly. A little picture popped up on my screen one time. I didn't see it at first, y'all, so I know a lot of y'all, especially y'all fellas, y'all had to go take a shower, go to church, come back home. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, listen, I apologize. I didn't see that picture. Somebody pointed it out, and I was like, oh no, the devil is a lie. Let me delete this and re-record. So anyway, this is the revised version of Craig Mack, The Curious Case of Craig Mack. And this will be a shorter video. I think the last video was 22 minutes. We'll cut that in half and get to the meat of the story and cut to the chase. So, okay. I decided to do this video because I noticed, man, a lot of bad boy artists, man, had either gotten saved, come to Christ, or just became ultra religious, man. You got Craig Mack, who became a Christian. Some say he got involved in a cult. You got Mace, who became a pastor and then went back to hip hop. You got G Dep, who became a Christian and was so convicted about a previous assault with a deadly weapon that he had did, which he didn't know was a murder at that time, what it was. He turned himself into prison. And then you got Loon, who became some Muslim imam or something like that overseas. I don't know if I think Loon did time or might be doing time. So it's strange, man, that so many people from the same camp, found God, or who they believe God is. So anyway, the curious case of Craig Mack, man. This one here, Craig Mack, man, back in the mid 2000s, 2005, he was the original artist of Bad Boy. And Craig Mack was the man way before Big. When Bad Boy first started, nobody really knew who Puffy was. It's just Craig Mack came out with the video. And actually, I think Total actually, no, Craig Mack dropped first and then Total dropped. And that's when you saw Puffy in the video with Total. And then you saw Biggie Smalls, or the late Notorious BIG. But Craig Mack was that dude. He had a couple of hits out. My favorite song by Craig Mack was a song called Making Moves with Puff, which it looks like they shot it in DC. They're dancing out on the monuments, throwing money. But then you had songs like Get Down, which was hot. And then, of course, Flavor in Your Ear. And then the Flavor in Your Ear remix with LL, Big, and a lot of the greats, Busta Rhymes. Craig Mack was the dude. Now, Craig Mack in the mid-90s was on top of the world. First artist really to be put out by Bad Boy. He kind of bridged the gap between the old school and the new school. And everybody knows Bad Boy, when they first dropped, they had the best sound because it was inventive, And Craig Mack was on top of the world for a minute, but then Craig Mack became very unhappy. If you go and YouTube some old videos of Craig Mack in the early days where he's with Big and Puff, and they're doing these little promotional stunt things on the air and at studios, Craig Mack does not look happy. And I think it was twofold. Number one, the attention started to more so shift toward Big, number one. And number two, Craig Mack was not happy in the artistic direction of Bad Boy, because when Craig Mack came back out, when they had, plans to drop his second album, they wanted him to be the Mac. Like Craig Mack, like the Mac. They wanted him to be that. I heard through the grapevine that they wanted him to come back out with that pimp image. Like he's the Mac, the ladies. And that wasn't him. He was just all about styles and lyrics and, straight up hip hop, and he wasn't happy. So Craig Mack decided to leave Bad Boy. I think he did a couple of independent, underground records. And there was rumors that Suge Knight even was gonna sign Craig Mack, or there was some talks of signing Craig Mack to Death Row, when he was about to set up Death Row East under Tupac. So Craig Mack was kind of just, you didn't hear from him. He kind of disappeared for a while. everybody was like, okay, people just kind of moved on. And the next thing you know, Craig Mack popped up. Craig Mack popped up as a born-again Christian, So I pulled this article from the internet. I'm going to try to kind of skim through it, give you all some background information on Craig Mack, and we'll talk about what led to his demise, was somewhat of his demise. Not his demise as far as his death, but his demise as far as, him leaving the scene and you really didn't hear about him anymore. All right, so I got this article from NewYorkDailyNews.com, and it says Craig Mack faced a fight or flight moment before leaving his family, rap career, and demons behind in New York. The artist behind the platinum 1994 hit Flavor in Your Ear was gunning to end someone's life in 2011, but chose another path, he revealed in an interview filmed weeks before his death on March 12th. Of course, y'all, this is an old article. I had a gun in my lap and I'm sitting there talking to God saying, like, I don't want to do this, but if it comes to getting ugly with somebody going to try to kill me, I'm going to have to do something first to prevent that, Mack said in footage shared with the Daily News. Mack, whose memorial is Wednesday, again, this is an old article, at the Faith Baptist Church in Hampstead, LI, looked to a car radio for solace during his breakdown. He flipped through AM stations looking for the hip-hop channel he loved while contemplating whether or not to use the weapon. Instead, he found Ralph Gordon Stair, that's S-T-A-I-R, a self-proclaimed prophet preaching on the airwaves. I knew that it was God talking to me because of the way it made me feel emotionally, Mack said. I broke down crying all over the place. In the car, I'm sorry. I was thinking about trying to do this to somebody. It was really in my heart to kill him. I was going to do it, Mack said. According to Mack's account, he called the religious leader for help and found the salvation he was looking for. He flocked to the Overcomer Ministry in Walterboro, South Carolina, and told only a handful of friends and family of his decision. The rest of the world learned of his new home planned by former parishioners, a cult. Let me repeat that. The rest of the world learned of his new home planned by former parishioners, a cult. So there was people that was involved in this so-called church and left and started calling it a cult. And this is what Craig Mack joined. All right. When a startling video of Mack denouncing his life of wickedness surfaced in 2012. Now, I saw that video, and basically this guy over here, this self-proclaimed prophet, he said, he was holding a mic up to Craig Mack, and he said, Craig Mack, he said, what is your name? And he said, Craig Mack. And he said, what did you used to do in the world? And Craig Mack said, wickedness. And I think it caught this pastor off guard because he was looking for Craig Mack to say, I was a rapper. But Craig Mack just said wickedness, like he had forgotten about everything that he used to do. All right, so it says, last year, Mack, no longer the young man behind the hit that launched Sean Diddy Combs' Bad Boy Entertainment in 1994, urged his friend and former producer Alvin Toner to come to Walterboro. So Craig Mack urged his friend to come down there. All right. Most of Mack's life was familiar to Tony. And remember, Tony was his former producer and his friend. Tony produced a single that earned Mack a Grammy nomination and the Get Down and the Project Funk, F-U-N-K, Project Funk the World, F-U-N-K, Project Funk the World records that followed. Those records now hang above Tony's desk at his Midtown office. And Get Down was a hot song. Everybody knows that. That was one of the hottest songs that came out that year, if not the hottest. The producer also watched Mack grapple with being denied a second chance with the acclaimed hip-hop label, believing he was eclipsed by Combs' other star, the Notorious B.I.G. Like I told y'all, see, Puffy came out with the Big Mac, and he submitted it to his label, Uptown Records, right? It was the Big Mac. It was a package with Big CD in it, and then Craig Mack CD in it. He called it the Big Mac. You know, creative, you dig? So we're going to skim through some of this, and we're going to get to the meat of the story. All right, so listen. So basically, Craig Mack confided in his friend, Mr. Tony, who kind of saw problems arising, but didn't want to take it too serious. He wanted to believe that it was all right. So it says, despite fielding years of late-night phone calls from Mack, Tony admittedly ignored the depth of problems at the rural church until he reviewed the footage his team recorded. Because they went down there to do a documentary. He reviewed the footage. When I was down there and talked to Craig, I didn't think it was a cult. All right? And it says that Tony, the friend, eventually concluded his friend had been had, lured to the troubled compound by Stair's apocalyptic broadcast. So this self-proclaimed prophet was predicting the end of the world. There's going to become all this destruction. Jesus is coming back, and we know it's coming back, but this guy was, having these apocalyptic end of the world broadcasts, and this was a compound. So Craig Mack went to live down there. He bought a house by the church, and he lived there, and became a part of the church, and got locked down. So his friend says, I'm angry because there's ways he could have went about giving himself to God. Tony said, I don't think that was the place for him because I knew how good his heart was, and I think they played on his good heart. I think they played on his good heart. Now listen, this particular so-called prophet, Mr. Stair, S-T-A-I-R, basically was doing dirt. You know what I'm saying? And as I'm speaking, I'm skimming down to what's going on here so I can let y'all know what the deal is. All right, so it says, he gets into the purpose of the documentary. I want everybody to understand what a cult is and what a real church is and what hip-hop music is, he said. All right, so check this out. Now, this self-proclaimed dude, he basically was arrested for rape and molestation of girls in his church. All right, now it says, for most of Mac's final 7 years, he lived alongside dozens of parishioners who had been similarly drawn to the church. According to Colleton County records, Mack bought a home from the Faith Cathedral Fellowship, the non-profit branch of Stairs Church, for, it says $5, but it couldn't have been $5. It says $5. That's weird. I doubt it was $5, but hey, that's what it says. In November 2017, I don't know, maybe he gave him the house. He lived there until his death, but remained an ardent follower of the 84-year-old Stair, even after the minister was charged with criminal sexual conduct with a minor and burglary in December. The victims, some of who were minors at the time of the alleged attacks, now get this, claimed Stair molested or raped them in the radio room where he delivered his sermons, according to local reports. In 2002, Stair was accused of raping 2 women at the church and pleaded guilty to lesser charges of assault and battery. Tony was aware of the latest round of accusations and ahead of his road trip to South Carolina, confronted Mack about the sexual conduct claims for the documentary. Your preacher just got arrested for having sex with a 12-year-old. How do you take that? Tony recalled asking Mack. Now listen to this. He said, I will forgive him because we forgave the people that killed Jesus. I'll repeat that. Craig Mack said, I will forgive him because we forgave the people that killed Jesus. At that time, he was all in. That's what his friend Mr. Tony said. Tony said at that time, he was all in, meaning at that time, I knew this cult had his mind. Now listen, God bless Craig Mack's soul, man. I pray that, I'm pretty sure, and I pray that he's resting with the Lord Jesus Christ. And this video is not to, dump on Craig Mack or try to call him dumb or like ridicule a dead person. It's not for that. I'm saying Craig Mack is a human being, man. Craig Mack is flesh and blood like all of us. We are a spirit, we have a soul, we live in a flesh body, and we deal with our own minds. It's human nature to submit to a cult. I don't have time to get into a whole lot of it, but I will say that to get involved in a cult is human nature. Why? Because Jesus called the people sheep. Sheep in nature are not really smart or bright animals. They're not the smartest animals. They're looking to be led by a shepherd. All right? They're beautiful creatures. And I'm not saying, Christ is calling us dumb. I'm just saying that the same way sheep are looking to be led, people are looking to be led, whether it's by a politician, whether it's by a religious leader, whether it's by a mentor. People are looking to be led. And when these cults come out and get power over people's minds and capture the minds, because people are taught to trust their spiritual leaders without thinking, man. And for you to think for yourself, it doesn't mean you have to be a problem or rebellious, because Christ said that he wanted us to have childlike faith, right? We don't always want to question everything, but we want to make sure our leaders are speaking in line with the word of God. All right, so Craig Mack was dealing with the issues of life, man. Like he said, he was dealing with conflict. He was dealing with feeling like he had to kill somebody, because we know that people don't fight no more. You might get into a fight and feel like you won that fight, and the next day you might lose your life because you won that fight. Right? So Craig Mack was dealing with some things, and Craig Mack decided that I want to give my life over to God, which is a beautiful thing. Right? He wanted to be a follower of Jesus. And I'm going to let y'all know that Craig Mack didn't just decide that at that time. I did my research on Craig Mack. Craig Mack had always been spiritual. Craig Mack had always been a Christian. Way before he got a record deal. They said that Craig Mack was always a spiritual cat who believed in Jesus. And at this time, when he started dealing with things in his life, he wanted to give his life fully over to God, and that's what he did. And he was looking for some help. And I want to say to Craig Mack and to his family, I feel very bad that you didn't get it, bro. I feel very bad that you didn't get it from this so-called prophet, okay, who was raping women in the studio where he did his sermons. Now, I told y'all before, and this is the reason why I did this video. I told y'all before that this dude called himself the prophet of God. He called himself the prophet of God, like he's the only true one. Because I seen Craig Mack on a documentary video on YouTube. He called this pastor the prophet of God. All right, they were all in his compound, and he had these people's minds. Now, I'm going to break it down to you what you need to look for when you are part of a cult. Because a cult always has, because basically a cult is about the leaders. It's not about Christ. It's about loyalty to our organization and loyalty to our leaders and loyalty to the head person, who's usually some self-proclaimed prophet, either still alive or somebody who's passed away, but they done wrote books and stuff and things have been passed down. A cult is never about Christ. A cult is never about freedom. A cult is about the leader and the leader's people. That's it. You ought to be subservient to the organization, and that's it. It's about them. So within a cult, there's always going to be three types of sins. There's going to be sexual sin, there's going to be money sin, and there's even sometimes going to be murder or violent sins. All right, if you look into, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen elsewhere, it does. But if you look into a cult, they always turn to that, because it's the pride of life, right? Cults are based on pride, right? These people need us. They need our teaching, our organization. It's about us. And the people in the cult also experience pride, right? Because it starts to be about, we're the only ones. We're obeying these teachings which make us special and apart from everybody else. Therefore, we're the only ones. When you're in that cult, and let's look at the signs, okay? Signs to let you know that you are in a cult, or that this organization is a cult. If you're thinking about joining, or if you're just seeing what's up, These are the signs to let you know it's a cult. Number one, I just told you number one, full of pride. Full of pride because it's about works. It's not about salvation in Christ's name alone and faith alone. It's about works, what you've done for the organization. You know, did you knock on doors? Did you talk to these people? Are you obeying these things that we set down for you to do? Did you go and witness to all these other people? It's all about your works. All right? Which will produce pride in you. Because it's all about what you've done. Less about what Christ did on the cross for you. Less about his blood. More about what you're doing. All right? It's always based in works. It's always based in pride. All right? Cults will always have supreme secrecy. You'll know some of what they're doing, but the leadership at the top, they know it all. They got stuff that they don't tell you, that they only discuss between themselves. Supreme secrecy. They'll tell you, oh, we can't tell you, you can't know. You know, that's not for you to know. Supreme secrecy. Cults are always based on man-made rules that sometimes may even line up with the Bible, sometimes, but it's not about the Bible. It's not about Christ. It's not about God. It's about the organization. Cults. If any so-called Christian denomination tells you that that this is the only way to be saved is by joining a denomination or staying a part of our denomination, you are in a cult. If you can't leave and start going to a Baptist church or a Word of Faith church or a Lutheran church or whatever, Church of God, whatever, if you can't leave and go to a different denomination and still be saved, because it's not about your denomination, people. It's about whether you are a receiver of the Word of God and whether or not you put your faith in the blood of Christ, not your denomination. If they say the only way you're saved is by being a part of our denomination, that's a cult. If you ever leave that denomination, or if you ever leave that organization, and you start to have feelings of depression, feelings of suicide, feelings of regret, nothing to do with sometimes people may leave different churches and, you may feel a little down because, you kind of miss it. But if you have extreme feelings of suicide and depression, you were a part of a cult because you have been brainwashed that those people are your salvation, not Jesus. Look, and that is a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing. When your faith is in an organization and not Christ alone, you can't have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. You have to submit to this organization to be saved. That is a dangerous thing, y'all. Forbidding you to communicate with friends and family is a cult. Now, Christ did say that there was going to be separation based on him. People were going to be divided. Some would believe, some wouldn't believe. So that sometimes reduces communication because, we've all been there when you truly give your life to the Lord. Some people just fall off. They think you're crazy, or they don't want you around, or you don't want to be around a lot of their foolishness. So sometimes there's division, but it's based on just the way life kind of flows. It's not based on this organization telling you you can't speak to them anymore. You can't talk to them anymore. Or we're going to put you out of the fellowship and then you're no longer going to be saved. That is a cult. That is a cult. All right, whenever they try to seclude you and get you on some compound, like Jim Jones, and for those of us, I'm not talking about the rapper Jim Jones, because I know we got some young folks listening. I'm talking to the so-called pastor Jim Jones that in I believe it was the late 70s, early 80s, had the cult in Guyana and had all the people drink Kool-Aid with cyanide in it and it killed them. He was supposed to be a so-called pastor, but then later we discovered that he didn't even believe it. He wasn't no pastor at all. The whole thing was a front for communism. The People's Temple. You can Google that and take a look at it. That was an example of a cult. Very charismatic leader, did things for the community. He was involved in, with politicians, getting certain laws changed, and doing for the people. And he led them people away and had them people drink Kool-Aid and cyanide, talking about it was revolutionary suicide. So listen, y'all, and again, this is not to make Craig Mack look bad. Craig Mack is human like all of us. We all could have made that mistake. We've all been involved in, I know myself, shoot, man. We've all been taking part in some Christian activities. Later on, we found out, man, this ain't even God, man. I mean, the prosperity movement got out of control in the late 90s. That became a little cultish with people giving all these pastors and ministers all their money. And we'll talk about that in a different video. But listen, y'all, have your own personal relationship with Christ. Listen to your family and friends. If they start saying, dude, you acting strange, like if they start bringing, start trying to, if they're concerned about you and they're concerned about you being in a cult, listen to them. Bible says out of 2 or 3 witnesses, every 2 or 3 witnesses, listen to them. Don't get involved in these cults, man. They want your money. They want your money. Many of them want your sex. And if you don't obey them, you'll wind up on an island somewhere like with a Jim Jones where they kill you. And we know Craig Mack didn't die for that reason, but I'm just saying this can happen to anybody. So I say to Craig Mack and his family, brother, you blessed us with some great music. We miss you, bro. And y'all can rate, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell to get all notifications. I'm out.